practical demonstration now, just to bring things to life. This is a bog standard cordless phone. The technology it uses is called DECT, D-E-C-T, pulsing microwaves, and DECT is also used in quite a lot of the wireless burglar alarms, and scandalously it's used in all the new digital baby monitors. And once such a, when DECT is transmitting, it will fill your house, it will pierce your neighbour's house, and it will fill the garden. So Ian's going to plug it in. Right. So Dr Tresidder's got an acoustometer here.
So here we're nearly down at the bottom on the microwatts per square metre, but instead of less than 0.02 volts per metre, it's flicking between 0.70 and 0.10. Close to it, we've got more than 6 volts per metre and about 1500 microwatts per square metre, 2000, 2434, 1738, 2086. So, very high signal.
Very high, and you've got to put it on soon because people are sensitive to it. I'm just going to run it down the hall so you can see how far it extends. Okay, and there's another one at the back picking it up as well, just to show how strong this stuff is.
Still picking up back here.
Right, yes. Phew, I think that's enough, thank you. So that's what's going through every cell in our bodies.
Apologies to anyone who got symptoms from that, because
yes.
you're sensitive, you may have done.
I actually had the volume turned down low. Had I had it turned up, you would have heard something quite extraordinary. I ought to also mention, it's not just that these are weak microwaves, they have this strong, very pronounced pulse. It's a rectangular digital pulse. It's not like the wavy forms that you get in nature's radiation. And it seems from the cell science that the cells don't like the pulse. So Wi-Fi, it's a bit like this. And then that one, I didn't turn it up enough for you, but DECT, it's more like this. So there's a problem with the pulse as well. The problem with the pulse is it makes this radiation more biologically active. Well, that's what we don't want. So I'm going to turn to our beautiful bees. Some of the people in the precautionary science field noticed that colony collapse disorder became pronounced in the United States around the time that masses of cell towers went up, masses of mobile phone masts. It might be a coincidence, of course, but it is worth noticing that they coincide in time. Now, Dr. Tresidder was talking about our magnetoreceptors. Sometimes scientists are concerned that our electropollution, the microwave pollution, is possibly beginning to affect navigation. One of the problems in colony collapse disorder is bees leave hives and then they can't find their way home. But I'm going to share one particularly fascinating study. In Switzerland, a biologist, Daniel Favre, 2010, conducted 18 experiments on sets of hives, beehives. And in the same plot as the beehive, he placed a mobile phone. I don't think it was an iPhone. iPhone has stronger output. And he set up tiny recordings of what was happening in the hive. Well, it was extraordinary. The worker bees gave out this frenzied cry. It's called worker piping, and it's the sound that bees make before they abandon a hive. And he found this in all of his experiments. And then at the same time, in Kerala, in India, Professor Sunadin Patterson, he observed hives. He didn't record them, but he observed them, and he tried putting mobile phones on, and his hives were deserted. So this is an area that needs more research. And also been studies of other insects. So Professor Margaritis, Professor Panagopoulos have found DNA damage in insects when they have been in the vicinity of wireless devices, whether it's tablets or Wi-Fi router or a phone, all those different types of technology. Wow, I even discovered there's research on what is happening to plants, or at least the risks to plants. Trembling aspens are in decline in the United States, and the researcher Katie Haggerty planted 3 test plots of trembling aspen seedlings. One plot was shielded from the local microwave radiation. I want to explain, microwave radiation is in the radio frequency band, and it's on the top. Okay. So she shielded them from microwave radiation or radio frequency radiation. The second plot had a pretend shield, and the third plot had nothing. The seedlings in the first plot grew vigorously, they were green and healthy. The seedlings in the sham-shielded and the unshielded grew poorly, they were smaller, they had sickly leaves, and they were discoloured. In Holland, a mayor was worried about the ash trees in his town. We've been worried about ours, actually. He worked with Wageningen University, and the researchers put Wi-Fi routers near ash trees on their campus. The ash trees developed splits in their bark, cancerous type growths, and their leaves glazed over and began to fall. In India, and this isn't very well known, it's quite recent, a Dravidian team took seedlings of spinach and they took seedlings of holy basil. Sorry, they planted seedlings. Holy basil is a very important folk herb. It's something that poor people rely on in India. This is where it comes to the social care side of things. He shielded herb and the food plant from 2G, not 3G or 4G, or our phone-masts have 2G, 3G, 4G. He shielded them from 2G, from a phone. The shielded seedlings were healthy. The unshielded seedlings lost protein, pigments, and medicinal properties. And I read that and I just thought, what are we doing? Are we having a hidden effect on the green world? And if not now, then what about when the pollution rises? Next picture, please. Some of us precautionary scientists say that, in a way, humankind is being subjected to an experiment without our informed consent. So in that context, I know it's not ideal. I know it's not ideal to have some sensitive experiments on mice, but let's learn from their sacrifice. So let's have a look at household gadgets and some sensitive studies of mice and rats. Here's your cordless-phone, decked. Dr Fragapoulou, 2012, and her team found that mice in the same room, not close to a cordless-phone transmitter left switched on 8 hours a day. We tend to leave ours switched on all the time. They had changes in the genetic expression of 60 key brain proteins, and she and her research team said, gosh, this could help explain why people are struggling with headaches, dizziness, poor sleep, depression, anxiety. You know, there were these brain proteins and they were out of balance. The mice were making more than they should or less than they should. Wi-Fi. Before I share about Wi-Fi, I just want to reassure you that there are lifting, clean alternatives to all these things. You can have, obviously, a corded phone. You can have corded computers. And I will come to that at the end because it's a really uplifting, kind of healing thing to know. 1 hour's Wi-Fi a day caused pre-diabetic changes in rats researchers is Miriam Saleh and her team in Tunisia. Saleh thought that it was because of free radical damage to the pancreas. Sinha and team found that Wi-Fi made their rats more aggressive. Alfonso Balmori found that phone-masts made certain birds more aggressive. We don't want more aggression in our world. And Naziroglu and team found pre-cancerous changes in the larynx. So I preface that by saying there are alternatives to these transmitters. We don't have to use them in our homes. And then finally, and if you remember one of the things I've said tonight, various researchers have looked at radiation from the mobile phone. Going back years, actually, this research has been building up. So Alan Frey, Guy Salford, various professors, they found that brief exposure to weak mobile phone radiation was weakening the blood-brain barrier of the mice and rats. Professor Guy Salford found that just 2 hours at a weak level that's equivalent to 1.85 from an ordinary mobile phone, that would be much further from an iPhone, caused damage to the blood-brain barrier. What is the blood-brain barrier? Well, it's this sort of sheath around the brain that we have and all mammals have, and it protects the brain from toxins. So this is important finding. He also found 2 months later that it hadn't healed. And Professor Belpom, who I mentioned right at the beginning in France, who's seen 1,000 patients, and he thinks that some of the things that he's found may be linked to a weakening of the blood-brain barrier. This is really important stuff.